Welcome to Attaining the World's Beyond Review. Today we are concluding chapter 28, which is not for oneself. We unfortunately have not come on air for at least the last 2 weeks, I believe, or maybe a week. We missed a week. But thank goodness we're here today. So once again, thank you for those of you who share our reviews and those of you who are following us. And please keep in touch. And from now on, one thing we're going to be doing, we're going to be summarizing the chapter that we are reviewing. So there will be like a 5 or 3 or 4 bullet points so that you can quickly read through that bullet point and try and get the essence of what this chapter is all about. And so that's how we will be doing it going forward. So today, as part of our conclusion, obviously, very interesting chapter, a chapter that makes us begin to understand ourselves better and our interaction with the light. So there are 5 key points. I'm not going to go through all the 5 key points. We are going to discuss some of them, and some of them you will read at the bottom of the video. The first point is there is disparity between the spiritual realm and the physical realm. And I think we understand why that is, because spirituality is about giving. It's about giving without receiving. And naturally, we are built the opposite way. So to become spiritual, we know that we have to have this inner quality, an inner vessel, which we call kilim. Kabbalistically, it's called kilim in this chapter, that this inner vessel which has a desire to give. And we already also learned that we can't get this without the Creator's help. And ultimately, we have to walk in faith for us to achieve this. So to round up this particular chapter, it emphasized this again to us. But it did so talking about Kabbalistic names, which are borrowed from this world. And we often, especially when you read the Bible, you come across things like mountain, hand, and Aaron lifts his hand up and the face of the Lord shine upon them. But those words actually, even though they're similar to words that we are familiar with in the physical realm, we are told in this chapter do not have the same meaning. They are just borrowed words with different meanings completely. And so we have to be mindful of that. I'm going to pass you on to Tuso. Maybe you want to talk about something else that you grasp from this chapter.
Thanks, Sheila. Yeah, this second part of this chapter, speaking of obtaining Lishma, which is the part of us where we are able to do everything for the sake of others, not for ourselves, since it's a chapter that speaks of not for oneself. The way to do that is to actually change the direction of which we are thinking and having an intention and doing things for ourselves. Now we're no longer doing it for ourselves, but for the others or for the Creator. And in order to do that, we come around or across people of the same in the same thought thinking, to say, where we are all wanting to do things for the good of the others. And as we have read, or as we just heard from Sheila, that different names that we read about, like we call God names, yet this chapter says that when we call or describe something without actually having attained it, it's like a lie. So it's really amazing that it open our minds and show us that there is another way of which we have not been looking at ever since the beginning of time. We just have been thinking about ourselves, consuming for ourselves, preparing for ourselves and generations to come, without thinking that when we die, as this chapter says, we leave absolutely all of those things. We take none of them with us, but the only thing that we actually take is the spiritual wealth or things that we have accumulated through trying to use this force of Lishma, meaning trying to do things for the others instead of ourselves. Let me hand over to Dilis.
Beautiful, beautiful friends and the listeners and viewers out there. Good day. It's lovely to be back. I was listening to the chapter today, and the one thing that resonates with me that I have to say, the one sentence that was mentioned was, in order to perceive the light that the Creator wants to give you, and we know the light is the pleasure, the true pleasure, we have to, our vessels, which Sheila, you mentioned, the Kli, this vessel has to change from an egoistic vessel into a vessel of bestowal. The light cannot be received in the vessel that's egoistic. And so the mission is to change that bestowal. And I think the part of the chat follows on from where they spoke about the different words that's used that might be seeming to be referring to the corporeal world, but in actual fact, it has a completely different meaning, sensation for the Kabbalist, for the person that's doing the searching, the person that's scrutinizing these vessels of them and shifting them to vessels of bestowal. The story from the Bible start making a different sense as you're trying to shift your vessel of reception to a vessel of bestowal. And of course, you said as well, through the help of the Creator, through knowing that nothing is possible by aiming yourself for this higher state. I'm going to hand back to you, Sheila, because I think we can do another round.
Absolutely. When as we've been talking, I've been glancing through the summary, and perhaps one thing that kept going through my mind about this chapter is that we live in an ocean of light, but yet we cannot perceive the ocean of light. And that thought kept coming through me as I was going through this, reflecting on the content that Dr. Laitman has shared with us in this chapter. And it left me wondering, but why can't we perceive it? We already know why. But then there is this bit where it says the interaction with the light is very, very interesting, that the light in itself is simple light because it's a light to give. It doesn't have any other quality. It's a light to give. But when we come in touch with it, something else is created. A third entity is created. And that entity that is created is based on how the light is perceived through us. We then create something else, which we then interpret as the light, or we don't call it the light, we interpret the event through how we feel, the sensation of how we feel. But what is very pertinent for us to remember is that what we actually have just created, that entity, is actually ourselves, because it's a reflection of ourselves. If we were similar in quality to the Creator, what we have created would have been exactly what the simple light is. But because we are not similar to the Creator, because we are perceiving through our senses, which are selfish towards us, self-love, we perceive something based on pleasure. Is this good for me? What am I going to get from this? So that's what we perceived. So that's what we created. And that creation, that thought creation, is what now we interpret as truth. And that is where the problems of our life begins from, because we are interacting with the light and we we are coming up with this third entity, albeit it's not consciously, because we're not consciously thinking that we're creating a third entity. But this book, actually, if we are to put this in a film and just do a slow motion of what it's actually telling us, is that a human being is always in interaction with the light, but that is always creating a third entity, which the human being then believe is the truth, and the human being then interacts with that. But it's nothing to do with the light, because the light itself is there, untainted, all giving, but yet what has been created that we're interacting with is tainted and, of course, selfish. I'm going to hand you over to Tusa. What do you want to say?
Absolutely. The light is constant. It does not change, or the creator. And it's always around us, but we need to build a form of a sensor or a detector for it to be able to see it or perceive it, as it says that the creator is incomprehensible to us or imperceptible to us. We cannot sense him with our current vessels of reception, because always we thinking only of receiving for ourselves. Through the five senses, we operate in two ways. If it gives me pleasure, I want it more and more and more. If it gives me pain, I want to run away from it. But if there is something, the one that Sheila spoke about, that does not exist or cannot be detected within my five senses, I cannot feel it or see it or touch it anyhow. But as soon as I begin to change my qualities, so my qualities now begin to follow this lishma, or doing things for the others instead of doing it for myself. What is formed now is called a soul. Suddenly we begin to have a soul between us, because now suddenly it's no longer about me. The direction is no longer pointed only at myself, but in between us, where I think of you and you think of me. That process automatically creates what we call a soul in between us. And that is actually what we call the vessel where the light is going to feel. That is the place where the creator or the light will feel. At the moment, our current vessels cannot be filled in by the light, because it's only for ourselves. But the only vessel that is ready to be filled in by the light, it's what we call the soul, or as Sheila had said, that thought in between, that becomes the new self, where we are only doing it for the others and not for ourselves. Deleuze?
I think you might be blowing the minds of a few people around here, but if you've gone through the book far, hopefully we are following this similar trajectory. I'll put it perhaps differently. Just gathering my thoughts on the matter. And the thought is this. So, if you want to cultivate the soul, you have to then, and you're going to do it through the perceptions of the world around you, because through your senses, the light is interacting with you, you're relating to it on some level. Now, depending on the environment that you choose for yourself, you can cultivate this soul.
I'm not sure whether, can you hear this?
Yes,
Okay, we can hear you now. Can you speak?
I lost you.
Yes, I noticed that. Okay. Do you want to carry on?
The way forward is the environment where you can be able to have perhaps others with you that's trying to act in bestowal. There's two ways that they mention in this chapter about you can have the fear of sinning, fear of separation, fear of just wanting to receive, or you get to the stage where you have the fear of this kind of greatness of this light of the creator, where you actually fear that you're not going to be able to bring this contentment, bring this love upon others, and And I'm going to leave it there.
Okay, I think I'm going to take it from because you started off an interesting conversation, but because we all come to the end of the 15 minutes now anyway, just to talk about a little bit about the soul, because the list was the internet went down. It's so important that we understand what this actually means according to what this chapter, as far as I understand it anyway, that a human being through their five senses of just, or the vessel of just receiving all the time, cannot build a soul, because the soul is the part of the divine, the part of God, and it's the light, it's the altruistic nature to give, to connect with others healthily, to want to be above and beyond yourself, to operate and in faith. As soon as one gets to this point where they do not feel their own desire is more important than others anymore, and their desire to bring contentment to the Creator is what is now more important, the book says that's the point you begin to build your soul again. And on that note, we will see again, read the, we're going to conclude, read the comment at the end of this video. When you watch the video, there will be a lot more content for you to read if you want to understand what this chapter was all about. And we will meet again next week, Sunday. Thank you for watching, and God bless.